Welcome back to my Pontus campaign. Last time we got bored of taking territory from Atropatkan and ended the war with them after a very successful string of victories, and we switched over to fight Rhodos in Bithynia because that would complete our home province. We fought and won two big and decisive battles with them, and now it's time to see if we can actually make anything of these wins. We're in the aftermath of the battle we saw at the end of the last episode. Time to see what the damage was and whether we've achieved our objective of securing Bithynia. First, I was noting here that my cavalry got tons of kills along with several infantry units as well. We really did some heavy damage to the enemy in that battle without taking all that many losses altogether, so that is very nice. So that second army, that was the one inside the city, basically gone. Same for the garrison army. That's what we wanted to see. I'm going to release the captives, and that first general that was apparently still alive gets killed anyway because he retreated. That was the leftovers from the first battle we saw in the previous episode. So anyway, there is still another Rhodos army nearby, but what I'm hoping here is that we can take the city without having to fight it, because now we can do this engagement and use night attack to take that army out of the picture, and all that's left is the half-dead garrison and a couple of naval units. Basically nothing, so now we'll be able to take the settlement for free, and that's our objective completed. That's all we needed. We've now unified our home province of Bithynia at Pontus. With that achieved, what I started thinking was we don't really need to be at war with Rhodos anymore. We could go and take their other two territories, but there's no real point. I'm not very interested in taking that particular region right now because it has part of the Lydian Empire in it and they're part of the Sassanid Empire. They're a satrapy of them, so we don't want to be harassing stuff over there right now. Luckily I was able to get a peace treaty with them since we did thrash them quite a lot during this turn, so they were probably feeling pretty beaten, and that's going to bring that war to an end. As for what we do next, I was waiting for this event to tell me. We've now completed the official mission you get at the start of the game, which is to unify two provinces. So that means we're going to get some new bonus objectives, and as I said right at the beginning, my vague ambition in this campaign is to just see what happens in my attempts to complete the bonus objectives. So right now we've got three new things to do. The first one is to get an alliance with the Seleucid Empire. That's going to be extremely difficult, but if we can get rich, maybe not impossible. The second one is a military one. We need to take a region in one of two specified provinces. One of them is Caucasus, the Caucasus essentially. The other is Bosphorus up to the north across the Black Sea. And the third objective was to research a particular technology, which I already happen to have, so we've already done that. I think it's a technology that spreads your own culture, which I needed anyway since we were conquering Armenia, so that was handy. So we're just going to focus on this military objective right now. The easier choice will be to go for Caucasus just because it's closer to our own territories. We actually border it, so we might as well try to take a region there. It does have one of our allies, Colchis, in there. However, we don't have to take the whole province, we just have to own a region in it. So we can go for the other two and complete the mission, and hopefully Colchis won't be too annoying to sit on the edge of the province being our ally since they are our own culture. As for the Seleucid objective, they're neutral to us right now, so we've got some distance to go before we make them our friends, but I decided I was going to put more effort into this than I did with the objective to make the Galatians our ally, where I just ignored it and killed them straight away, because this would actually be more useful to us, and I feel like it's going to be possible in a more reasonable time frame now that we can potentially make a load of money and bribe them to be our allies. Right now, I wasn't getting anything from them by offering them money for the most basic diplomatic deals, but we'll come back to them later. So here's Kartli. This is the faction that controls one of the regions I need to take for our new mission. I've got Ariobarzanes standing on the border looking at him, so it should be pretty clear to them what I'm going to be doing very soon. I can see their army, it's just tons of levied spears for the most part, so that's good to know, nothing too special from them. And they do have a full stack garrison in their town as well, and walls to defend them, meaning they are going to have some strength if we attack them, so I was waiting for Mithridates to catch up and come over to help. We learned that Ariobarzanes had been wounded in an assassination attempt. Fortunately, he was still there. Yes, it was the other Ariobarzanes in a confusing twist. So actually our invasion plans aren't going to be altered by that little political annoyance right there. So yes, what I'm trying to do here is have Ariobarzanes attack from the south, while Mithridates is going to use the fact we have military access with Colchis to just set up on their western border ready to attack. It was time to get the war going diplomatically. I tried to get some of the tribes to the north to buy us into the war, but we didn't get anywhere with that, so we just joined it normally, and there was no diplomatic ties on either side being involved, so it's just a straight up war, us against them, and we're immediately surrounding them, ready to make an attack. I'm moving my spy to check out the next region over to the east, just in case we want to go and attack that right after as well. Now what I wanted to do was just stand on their border for a bit to see if their army would come out and attack us, see if they would feel threatened. While I was waiting, we got this message that Mada, which is a spin-off faction from Atropatkan, is attacking Colchis, and now I'm supposed to come into this war to support Colchis, but I really didn't want to, because Mada are on our southern border, where all of our forces aren't right now, plus they're allied to Atropatkan, and they'd probably bring them back into their war against us, so we're going to ignore the situation, which does mean losing Colchis as our ally, but since we're starting to take territory in their province, we might not want to be their allies forever anyway. So now we're ready to make our attack after the enemy just didn't do anything, unfortunately. We're going to do this the hard way, trying to do a settlement assault with 2 stacks inside, so it's going to be a very crowded settlement indeed. I'm going to need a lot of siege equipment because we'll have to attack through lots of angles at the same time to have any hope of actually getting in and sustaining a breach and a route in for our further reinforcements to support that attack. I'm also coming back to the Seleucids a couple of turns later. For whatever reason they like us now, we're now friendly with them. I think they might have not liked Colchis or something. Generally whatever decisions we're making here seem to be impressing them, but I couldn't get any deals with them. I was also having a little look in with Rome, who are expanding quite nicely. We can see they've taken parts of Greece. We can also see that Rhodos have finished conquering the Asian part of Greece. So now we need to make sure they don't declare war on us to get revenge and try and take Bithynia back or anything like that. Anyway, so I waited a couple of turns while I was building the siege equipment I would need, but I forgot about the supply system. Neither of my armies has a baggage train, and they both ran out of supplies. That means we're now taking heavy attrition, and all of our troops have a large debuff because they are now starving. There's one way to get around that, of course, that is to attack the town right now and try to capture it. We don't have all the equipment I was going to use, but we do have an advantage on the balance bar. It's even an auto-resolve, but I knew this would be harder than it looked, so I wanted to do it justice by going down and fighting it manually. The city is a particularly small one. That's going to help the enemy out quite a bit because their gigantic army inside with 40 or so units will be able to protect pretty much any part of the wall, so we can't take them by surprise and get over a part that's just undefended or anything like that. So I'm mainly attacking the eastern wall with most of our army, but Ariobarzanes himself and one other unit of Galatians is heading up to the southern wall with a unit of Sparabara as a meat shield to make another attack there as a distraction, and Mithridates will come in from the west to support once there is a way into the city. So we're going to get started with our assault, bringing 2 ladders over towards the eastern wall of the city. The enemy have so many archers up there that in principle this attack should be impossible, but there is a nice glitch for us to use in Rome too. Possibly just an oversight rather than a glitch. Units can't target siege equipment, so all their fire arrows miss and just hit the unit pushing it instead. Not much comfort for them, but it does mean that both our ladders are basically undamaged as they reach the wall, and we will be able to climb inside, so that's all very good. And they have extra archers back here behind the wall shooting up and over, raining arrows onto everything and probably hitting some of their own men, so that is nice. Now our hoplites will have a theoretically easy fight ahead of them. We've just got archers who we can start thrashing in melee as we gradually gain a presence on the wall, and the swordsmen coming up to their right will be pretty much uncontested, so that is nice. I also moved up these slingers, both to absorb arrow fire and to potentially provide some sort of covering or suppressing fire, but by the looks of things they were just hitting our own men. I didn't realise this in the battle. They're throwing out the unit our men are fighting and just hitting us in the back, so that probably didn't help out very much at all. So there we go, we're starting to get our presence on the wall there, and I'm doing a similar thing on the southeastern corner of the city, where I've got 2 more units breaking their way in, this time not really contested very much, so hoping for more luck there. Ariobarzanes and his team are currently stuck. This is another glitchy behaviour we tend to see in sieges. Siege weapons kind of get pushed ahead of the unit, and sometimes when they move too far ahead of the unit forgets it has it, and after a long time it will check again, realise it's supposed to be pushing it and go back into it, but it just can mean that approaching the wall with siege equipment occasionally takes way longer in certain cases like that one, so they're going to be attacking much after this attack got started. You can see there's a bit of a problem going on here though. My unit that got up uncontested is about to rout, and if we look at the unit card here, which by the way I'll eventually minimise for these replays once I remember to actually do it, we have a gigantic morale debuff from our starvation, presumably. It doesn't say what's causing it, but that must be the cause. So our morale is actually now lower than just the trashy levy troops that the enemy are deploying, which is terrible news for a siege assault. These units leading the attack need high morale, so they can rely on the fact our superior stats will eventually just kill everything the enemy have. But with this low morale situation, we may not be able to apply our superior troops because they don't want to fight at all. Here, another bad looking situation, our unit diving into the enemy's levied troops, ready to kill them, but they just don't want to do it. And here, this unit not even in combat, just routs. And the problem, another problem we're going to face here, is that you can't go down ladders, unlike in the earlier games. So in order for a routing unit to leave a city, it has to go to the gatehouse and go out the gates. And to do that, it's going to rush through all of the enemy's troops, and we're going to take complete 100% losses on that unit. There's no chance of getting it back. We didn't even use it, and now it's gone. One of the most important units, a sword unit. Heavy swords are just what you need for attacking walls. Now we don't have them. The hoplites will have to try and do it on their own. And it looks like something similar is going to happen in this other attack point. And here they're actually fighting, so that's going to be even more demoralizing for them. While that was going on, I was trying to move my 1 ram towards the gates. It was becoming clear that capturing the walls might not work, but if we open the gate, that doesn't necessarily matter. The hoplites who were fighting up on the walls over there now rout as well, leaving our attack completely failed. I was going to move this reserve unit to help them out, but I decided against it, realizing that there's just no point. We don't have the morale to make these attacks, and fortunately for us, you can go down the ladder if you haven't jumped off it yet. So I then kind of climb up to the top, realize what's going on, and then climb back down, so we didn't lose all of those troops, fortunately. Now the Sparabara are having a pretty hard time here, because now that my attack on the wall isn't happening anymore, the enemy's archers aren't so distracted, so they can all target my 1 unit pushing the ram. Fortunately, they can't target the ram, so the ram will be okay, but the unit pushing it won't be. They rout after taking extreme casualties, and the ram is just left there. The enemy gate is actually open, again, because classic Rome 2 glitches, but I don't think you can go through it unless the gates are technically destroyed, so you do have to just ram the open space for a bit in order to gain entry, which is annoying, but we're not going to be able to do that anymore anyway. Now Ariobarzanes' attack is starting to get going here. Him and his Galatians should have a really easy time against all the stuff that's been sent to stop him. These low quality Eastern Spearmen and the Spar levies, they'll just go down easily, at least in theory. The other thing to note is that all of our units have a hefty melee attack debuff, probably also from the starvation going on, so we actually can't kill the enemy particularly quickly, even with our gigantic advantage. Here's my meat shield strategy for the Sparabara. They're absorbing fire from the enemy's towers, keeping that away from our heavy infantry, which would be pretty vulnerable to it, so that was working well, in a sense. Now the attack on the southeastern corner has completely failed at this point. The swords who were there rout, and this just causes some more classic glitches as they try to get to the gatehouse, going through pretty much the entire enemy army on the way, but they're going to try and do it anyway. That leaves just our hoplites. You can barely see now. We've got a unit of hoplites that's completely crushed up against our ladder and into the corner of the wall here. Their stats will be so superior to the units they're fighting, that they can fight on for a long time, but hoplites are particularly vulnerable when attacking on walls because they get the formation breached debuff really easily, and it just ruins their morale, which was already ruined by the starvation, so they will eventually just rout once they take a minimal number of casualties. There they go, and that's going to convert that minimal number into 100% casualties. There is no fight to the death mechanic in this game, and this is a case where we really need there to be one. Unfortunately, it's just going to mean this is a nice easy win for the enemy. I foolishly tried to support them with some more Galatians. Again, the Galatians could, in theory, in principle, kill all of these units in melee because they're so much better, but with the enemy's tower fire, the enemy's archers, and our debuffs, all in all, it's probably not going to happen. At this point, it was becoming clear that we just aren't getting inside this town. We can't capture a gate, and if we can't capture a gate, then we can't use any of our second army effectively. All we could do with these guys is push them up the ladders into the grind, and perhaps slowly take the wall and take a gate, but overall, I didn't think it was going to be worth the losses. So just as soon as Mithridates arrives, I'm going to turn his army right back around to start marching to the edge, ready to withdraw, and I'm going to do the same with the remaining troops from Ariobarzanes' army. This means the troops we've lost so far will just be sacrificed. We're essentially cutting our losses. The big problem with this is that Ariobarzanes himself is on the wall, and because he can't climb down the ladders, even though we still have control over the ladders and the area where the ladders are, we can't escape. The only way for him to get away from this is to actually capture a gatehouse. In principle, he could be able to do it, but if the enemy move any of their troops over to stop us, it's not going to happen, and unfortunately, the whole army can now focus on us. The Galatians routed, they're going to be completely wiped out as they attempt to escape, of course, and we're just in general in huge trouble here. There is still, though, one way for Ariobarzanes to survive, so I thought I'd try an incredibly cheeky tactic. First, I wait for his unit to rout. Once it routs, I'm going to immediately press escape and then go on quit battle in the in-game menu. That just ends things, and it ends things in an auto-resolve, which is critically different to ending things by letting the battle play out, because what gets lost is somewhat random. You don't always lose everything. So what I hoped was that all the stuff that I'd effectively withdrawn, and that was on the edges of the map, would be allowed to survive, and maybe it would then just auto-resolve against only Ariobarzanes and let him live because he's a high rank, and high-ranking generals, broadly speaking, don't die in auto-resolves. Here's what we got. It worked to some extent. Ariobarzanes is still alive with some of his men, somehow. A lot of his army is dead as a result of their failed attacks, of course, but interestingly, Mithridates also somehow lost the majority of his heavy infantry, even though they didn't take part in the fight at all. I think it was because they weren't quite over the line as I quit the battle while they were withdrawing. So the auto-resolve factored all of these guys in and decided they would have lost if they took on everything left on the Kartli side and killed them. So actually it probably would have been better to let Ariobarzanes die to keep all of those hoplites, because now without them we've been thoroughly punished. We lost so many men there that what we have left can't really keep fighting. If Kartli comes out to attack us, we'll be in huge trouble. I started sizing up what we have left compared to what they have, and it really wasn't enough. We were suffering from the debuffs still, and we have no heavy infantry to counter the enemy's mass waves of levied spears. So what I ended up thinking is actually it's better to just completely admit defeat. Since we can't move, the enemy will just be able to kill us if we stay here, but we can teleport away using some more classic exploits. I can disband the armies and rebuild them somewhere else. This does mean I'm going to lose my hero, because you can't take them out of the army before disbanding, unfortunately. I think because we had no movement points, you can in other circumstances. And there we go, I disbanded both armies, so that's going to remove the threat of us losing our officers. We weren't really disbanding anything too valuable in terms of units, since all of our best units were already dead. And now we'll take the time to just rebuild the armies. I've already got Mithridates II working on one, and we can just get some other guy back at Trapezoros to start another one, and then we'll put Mithridates back into the army later on once he's returned to service from his magical teleportation journey. So we can use our reformed troops and our improved income to hopefully make a better army and come back for another round with the Kartli. They certainly won round one, but we're not done with them yet.